In this video, we're going to look at multiplying integers. So first, let's start with the chip model. Notice in this table we have number of groups and number in each group. We'll also start using the language number of copies and number in each copy. So the copies of language will become really prevalent when we start talking about fractions, but it's nice if you can work it in here too. So even though multiplication is commutative, when we have 3 times 5, we're going to say 3 groups of 5, or equivalently 3 copies of 5. So try to get them acclimated to this language now, okay? And we'll look at how they sometimes reverse it when they're thinking of the number line model. So if we have 3 groups of 5 or 3 copies of 5, we can start with 1 copy. Okay, so that's 1 copy or 1 group of 5. And we want to make 3 copies or 3 groups of 5. Okay, and you can talk to them about copy and paste. So they could copy this and paste it 2 more times, and that would be 3 copies. And then our result is the total number of positive chips, which would be 15. Okay. The next one we have is 3 groups of negative 5, or 3 copies. So that's 1 group of negative 5, 2 groups, and 3 groups. So combined, it's a total of negative 15. Okay. So this will help them start to see some of the sign relationships in multiplication. If they could visualize 3 groups of 5, they'd see all the chips would be positive. 3 groups of negative 5, all the chips would be negative. Now you'll notice in the next 2 examples, we're just going to use the opposite of type language. So we have negative 3 times 5. So what's negative 3 copies? Okay, we could use the commutative property, but we actually haven't discussed that yet. And also we want them to utilize this idea of using the opposite. So if we think of negative 3 times 5 as the opposite of 3 copies of 5, they could take this result and just flip all the chips, and they'd have 15 negative chips. Okay. Here, negative 3 times negative 5 would be the opposite of 3 groups of negative 5. Flipping all of these chips would give us positive 15. Okay, here we'll have them multiplying integers using a number line. Okay, and these are set up intentionally. So here we'd have 3 copies of 5 or 3 groups of 5. Here's our number line. So 3 copies of 5. So we can start at 0, go to 5, 10, and 15. Okay, so this is first copy, second copy, third copy. I can almost guarantee that a student will look at this and they will do 5 copies of 3. So they'll do 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to 15. And I would let them know that that's equivalent, so they're not officially wrong, but we are using the idea of the first number as being the number of copies, and this is the size, so that's why they should increase by 5. Okay. In the second one, we'll use the opposite of 3 copies of 5 again. So the reason these are next to each other, we'll have 3 copies of 5 is 15. Here we'll have them use the previous result, take the opposite, and reflect to negative 15. Here we have 3 copies of negative 5. So that would be moving 1, 2, 3 copies of negative 5 is negative 15. And then here we would take the opposite, reflect back to 15, and get the opposite of 3 copies of negative 5. Okay, and we'll start a new video for dividing integers.